What up, YouTube? Alright, we're gonna try something interesting. Let's see if I can fix this Henson bleeder. This is the bleeder right here. So, I got my little Pittsburgh pump right here. So, first time using this thing was very unsuccessful. And we're going to try it again. I'm going to try something a little different though. Test it out. And then at the last resort, we're going to try this thread locker right here. It's a medium strength thread locker number 22. So I'm going to try that and see if I can maybe seal at least this end of the bleeder. So from what I understand, the bleeder has been known to leak at the between the bell housing and here. The first time I tried this, I couldn't really get a vacuum on it, and I got just a little bit of fluid coming out of it. So it didn't work for me, and I'll show you that again right here. I'm gonna hook this bad boy up, and oh, it's hot too. Unfortunately, my engine's pretty hot at this point. I drove out a little bit earlier, but I've been in for maybe about an hour. So, but it's still warm because I imagine it's probably in the triple digits here right now. Still too. Part of the issue I was having the last time, so I hooked it up. As when I tried my vacuum, and I'll try it again. Before I put it in there, you know, put your hand on here and basically pump it up, and it's supposed to hold pressure. So as you can see, this bad boy is holding pressure at this point. So release it, or you can use this button right here to release it, and we'll try it on here. Part of the issues I was having is this thing. I don't know if it's going to work this time, as it is pretty warm. So, doesn't look like it will. But it was actually leaking through here. So as you can see, it's dropping down. So I figure that, you know, if the leak isn't actually, if the leak actually isn't at the other end, you know, by the slave cylinder, then it's a possibility it's leaking in here. So I'm going to try this one more time after I repositioned it. And as you can see, it's still leaking out. And my problem with this is that if I have a leak in it, first of all, this thing is not even open. It's not open. So I had to actually crack it for this thing to be open. And I would think that it wouldn't have any fluid leaking out of it. And I sucked out the fluid before and put some more in, and it looks like the level is pretty much still the same. So that's a good thing. But the idea is you suck it out, and it goes down, and then as it goes down, you are able to basically add more brake fluid into here, which is brake fluid .4, and it should, you know, basically flush out the system. You know, after you get to a certain point, you would empty out your cup right here, and you start again. So, but because of this issue, I don't think I'm having a proper vacuum, but I also think that the reason why is because maybe the air is leaking through these threads. I have seen other basically bleed valves that had some type of looked like it had like a thread lock on it, to maybe keep that from happening. So I didn't actually install this, and I haven't actually taken this out. So I'm going to take it out and see if there's any thread locker on it. And then if there's not any on it, I'm going to put some on it, and I'm going to see if it actually stops this the air from leaking when I actually put the vacuum on, with it actually having it, the bleed valve open, if that makes sense. I already have this open. If I understand, you're supposed to use a fresh bottle of dot floor fluid. So you probably want to get a smaller one. I got like the quart version of it, which is relatively large. But from what I understand, you probably don't need as much, and it's probably better to get the smaller ones because this is supposed to be I don't know. Basically, it soaks up water. So if it's open, there's a possibility you can get water into it, and that'll actually affect, your braking system. So just be aware of that. I would say get the small ones. Probably get, 2 or 3 of them. You probably only need maybe one, maybe 2 through this process. But, it's better to have more than enough. But that's just something I just kind of picked up along the way. Let's see here. So let's go ahead and crack this valve open. Still hate that this thing is so warm right now. That might not stay on like I need it to. But we're doing our trial and everything today, I guess. So I was kind of hoping it'd be a little less warm. Should basically be able to apply pressure to this. So, and as you can see, I got some fluid coming out of it. So open up a little more. And we'll see how this works. See if this works. Like I said, I still have some fluid, so I think it's partially pressurized. But I'm wondering if I actually got issues on the other side of it too, at the slave cylinder. And as you can see, it is going down, so it is affecting the pressure. But for whatever reason, this bad boy is not actually pressurizing like I need it to. So, what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to basically put some thread lock on that. I want to see if it's thread lock on it first. And then if it's not, I want to put a little bit more on there. And we'll see if that actually stops this from leaking air. Oh, that's definitely. So, but I do have some type of pressure coming out of it, if you guys can see. If it was up at the, if you look at my, that round, that is going down. And as you can see, it is still pretty dirty. So, but it is going down, so it is having an effect. This pump is having an effect on that. And you can see some in the tube as well. But I want to try to take this down, right? We'll see if it does what we need it to do. Alright, so they definitely don't have any lactate or anything on this thing. So that confirms that suspicion. I want to wipe this off. Get another rag right quick. Alright, so we're going to wipe this off. As you can see, I got fluid leaking out. I'm going to, actually I'm going to take a picture of this right quick, just for reference. Let's see if I can do that without taking my gloves off. So hopefully this will stop the basically the air leaking through this bad boy. So I'm thinking that unless this, hopefully this, this hose is good, which I can't say for sure it is, and that it's tight, because I got a leak in it in the first place. But if it is, and this is the only issue, which is entirely possible, then hopefully this will fix it, or at least fix it enough to where it'll actually stop my issue. I did not. So I'm gonna put this back in, install it. Actually, let's do a little suction on it first, see if we can kind of pressure out. Open it. Oops. Sheesh. So tighten it. That's tight. So hopefully that'll solve our issue. At least on the one side. Now, if it's a bad hose, meaning it's braided part of our hose, then we can't do anything about that. However, if it's this part right here on this side, and it kind of gives us a little bit of pressure, then it could actually increase the amount of pressure that we can actually use to suction out our power steering fluid. And if that's the case, cool. But there is another issue, because on the other side of this there is a I think it's pretty similar to this. The fitting's a little bit different going into it, but it does use this type of fitting right here on the other side of it. It uses this, but it has a some threads that goes into the slave cylinder to connect it. Now on the other side of this, part of what's really kind of interesting is you can get a little bit more expensive item from Tick Performance. And the Tick Performance one, from what I understand, as long as you get the right one, it actually allows you to install the fitting, because it's got like a long fitting that goes into the transmission, so that you can basically disconnect the old one, put in the new one. It's a little bit longer, and it allows you to connect to that fitting without actually having to take the transmission apart. Whereas with mine, part of the issue is excuse me, is you actually have to basically take the transmission off, which means you might have to take off the exhaust, you have to take off the drive shaft, and then you got to take off the transmission itself to actually install this thing onto the transmission. So it's pretty extensive to actually get this thing installed. But the TIC performance version of it is made to where you don't have to do that. Now you'll have to fish around a little bit to make sure you get it put on correctly when you first install it. However, once you do, you should be good to go. And then you shouldn't have any issues out of this. Also, another thing is that the way the TIC performance is created, from what I understand, is you don't have a valve like this. This is supposed to be a bleed valve, but this, well, I'll take that. This is the bleed valve, but it's not a check valve. A check valve allows you to be able to, allows basically, let's say, air and liquid to go one way, go in one way, or go out one way, and it doesn't suck anything in. So it allows you to self-bleed, but you don't have to have this right here to self-bleed it. So you basically be inside pumping the brakes, or should be pumping the clutch, and while you're pumping the clutch, it would just come out. All the air would come out, the fluid would come out. You would keep adding into it until it becomes clear. You know, make sure this thing doesn't go dry, but it allows you to do it by yourself, and it doesn't allow air to go back into the system, so you can actually bleed the air out of the system using that check valve, as opposed to this one right here, which is where you got to have somebody pumping it, and you got to open it, close it, you know, once they you open it or you pump it, then they you open it, I think you pump it, and then you hold the clutch down, and then they got to close it here, and then they release it in there, and then you pump it again, and then you got to open it. Yes, it's a whole little process for this thing. It's a little crazy. Not crazy, it's what you got to do, but you know, it's not as simple as, you know, being able to like just take it out and keep rocking with it, or use like a air system to do this thing. So this thing is supposed to take about 20 minutes to cure. Well, should be allowed 15-20 minutes fixture time, and then 24 hours is the full cure for this right here, if you're using this stuff. So if it works, hopefully at least I'll be able to get pressure while it's fully closed. And if it's get pressure while it's fully closed and there's no issues with this actual hose itself, braided hose, then it should give us a lot more pressure to be able to actually use this pump to actually bleed the brakes using this thing right here. So if not, there's a possibility that you might need to, if you do have this thing and you don't want to, you know, get the TIC, you probably want to get you some Loctite, and you want to put it on the other side of it when you actually install it to make sure it holds pressure, as long as it's not the hose. And if you do it over there and you do it over here, as long as this hose is good, I think you'll be successful. But if you want to avoid all this problems in the first place, my recommendation would be to go ahead and get the TIC one if you're going to try to get a remote bleeder. Otherwise, you'll potentially run into this. Now that being said, there have been people that said that they actually they're cool with it, that this thing has actually worked for them. Now I don't know if they automatically put the Loctite on it, you know, just in their installation process, since it already isn't, since it isn't already on it. But there are people who have had success with this thing. But I'm thinking they actually put Loctite as a part of their process of installation. But that's just my opinion. So, but another thing you can do, which I think was, I was thinking about it myself as a possible solution when I first tried this, and that is to actually use a turkey baster to suck out the fluid out of this thing, put into the your container or whatever you're going to store this stuff. Then originally I was thinking about driving it around, kind of give it a time to go through the system, and just keep changing it until the fluid becomes clear. But in the course of me researching this, I found that there is a particular method that allows you to do this. And basically you take it out, you pump the pedal 30 times, then you basically put more fluid in, pump it 30 times again, and you just continuously do it until everything is over with. Until the fluid is actually clear. And so it's pretty cool process, a lot better than what mine was, quicker. And so try that. What up, YouTube? I'm back again with trying to vacuum bleed a clutch on a 2004 Pontiac GTO. Alright, so I added the Loctite to our fitting, which is right here. And previously, when I would actually before I actually open up the bleed valve, I try to apply pressure to this fitting just to see make sure the pump was good. And it actually would leak air. It would not hold pressure. So for instance, if I take this off and I try to pump it up, because I have nothing holding onto it, it won't hold pressure. If I plug it up, it actually starts holding pressure. So that lets me know that my system from here to my finger is basically leak proof. So there's no leaks in it. So you press this button, releases. So next step is to put it on here. And previously what was happening was it would leak. It would still do the same thing as if I didn't have my finger on it. So I could put it right there and it would basically act like there was a leak. But now that is gone for the most part. It looks like it's holding pretty stable, as you can see. And so since it's pretty stable, that means we should be able to apply more vacuum to our system once we actually open up open up the leak valve. So our leak valve is right here. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to take a 7/16 wrench for the small one and a 9/16 wrench for the big one. And we're going to open it up. We'll open this up first, and we're going to see if we can actually bleed this bad boy without introducing more air into the system. Let's see.
We actually put in vacuum on it, we'll actually basically take our pressure on, keep the system pressure on this, and it should take us, decrease our level of the fluid. So move this a little bit.
This is not going to be right. So, move it over. Alright, so if you can see, in this regard, you'll see that my fluid level is pretty high. It did come out a little bit before when I was draining out. So now that should go down if we're bleeding properly. It should go down faster than it was. It used to be a little bit higher than that. But we're going to pump it up, pressurize the system, Then if it goes down good enough, we're going to pour more brake fluid into our clutch, and hopefully we'll be good to go. Alright, unfortunately, negative goes wrong. Alright, so even though it is got a better seal on it, we are still not getting good vacuum. Uh-oh. Maybe that's changing. It is going down. Pressurized like I would like. That's a problem. We'll tighten this up a little bit. Maybe that will give us a little bit more pressure. Maybe I open it up a little too much. We shall see. Put this on. But our level is going down, if you can see that. So it looks like it's not pressurizing, but it is pulling through. So what this tells me right now, I need to open it up a little bit more because we're not getting anything coming through right now. So I'll open it back up a little bit, and then this will be easier if it's pressurized, but for whatever reason it looks like some of it is actually coming out, but not enough. So what that tells me is more than likely the system is really not on the other side of this, hooked up to the slave cylinder. There's probably a leak. So with that leak, we're not going to be able to pressurize the system, even though we can actually get some of the fluid out. So we might end up having to do this more analog way, which is not cool. But yeah, it's official to me that the Henson bleeder is not very good, at least in my regard, or at least in this package form. If I understand what I remember, it didn't come with any installation directions. So if you do have this and you're installing it, prior to installing it, I would say make sure you put Loctite on this side as well as the other side that's connected to the bleeder. Either that or take it back and go get you a Tick Performance bleeder, because that seems to be way better than this thing. Just taking some of it out. But you kind of got to keep pressure on it and keep pushing the valve toward the thing, because I'm putting pressure here and I'm pushing this way, and so it's helping to create a tighter seal. So it is going down. Right now I'm going to pour some more brake fluid in, see if we can just keep going. So at this point we're just basically beasting this flush. We're just going to keep doing it until it becomes clear. And I'd grow some Popeye arms. Whoops, that is not good. course, again, you gotta watch our level here. A little capture cam. This sucks. What's going? Switch hands. And I do have a zip tie holding this thing up, so that kind of helps to we need a little leverage on this thing. And it is going down, like I said. That seems like it takes more pressure to get it that way, to do this method, that it should. Alright, pour some more in. Now the interesting thing about it is the hope that we're not actually keeping air in the system, putting any air in the system. Pressure, some type of pressure. And once it does, then it actually starts, the level starts going down. Basically what they're trying to do is flush out my old fluid since it's pretty dirty. And the idea is to get it to where it's clear. So at this point, the thing is almost full. So I'll go ahead and close this bleeder valve off. And then we're going to remove the hose. Hopefully not introducing any more air into the system. Alright, that's closed. Releasing the air, which is not. I'm going to, actually it looks pretty clear right now. So it's not doing too bad, it seems like. So it looks like we're about done, potentially. Or, you know. And I'm sure you guys who are a real mechanic can tell me where I'm messing up on this bad boy. But hopefully, not doing too bad. However, I will definitely find out once I start driving. Okay. See if we got enough for some pressure. Some suction. Again, this is not supposed to be the way it's supposed to work. It's supposed to have more pressure going into, or at least a better seal. And because I believe we got, it needs to have some Loctite on the other side of this remote valve or remote bleeder. I think that's the reason why we're not getting any pressure like we should be getting. And so we're kind of getting partial pressure when we seal this part of it. But in reality, we need the other one. But again, if you want to avoid this, either do what I was telling you to do as far as the sealing both sides of the valve, or shooting the rope bleeder, or just go ahead and get you a tick remote because it seems like it's a better quality product, easier to install, probably cheaper on both sides because this one, again, you have to actually take your transmission off to install this one. And so not only do you have the cost of this valve, but you got the cost of labor and everything to remove your transmission, your exhaust if you have. I'm not sure if you'd have to do it on the 04, but you probably have to do it on the 05 and the 06. But you'll have to remove your exhaust. You'll also have to remove your excuse me, your drive shaft, and you have to remove the transmission itself to actually get access to the location where you can actually install this particular one. So it'll be cheaper in the long run to get the tick, because even though the tick costs maybe, I think the tick version of this remote breather costs maybe twice as much as the Henson. However, the tick, you can do it without actually having to remove your transmission. You know, it might take you a little while to get it in there, but it'll be quicker in the long run and cheaper, at least in my opinion. And, you know, if anybody else has any knowledge about it, you know, please drop it in the comments as well. Fluid is looking clearer inside the tube. I don't know if you guys can see it, but looking decent. It's just going down. Still no pressure. I wouldn't be surprised if it's leaking underneath the car though either. So. Sheesh. And also, key note that I'm trying to keep my fluid level from going below the hose where it actually comes out of that. And that's another way I'm trying to keep from introducing more air into the system. You know. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close my bleeder. So tight close it. I'm going to empty out my reservoir. Basically the reason why it's not almost halfway full, but I want to see how clear the liquid is, because if it's completely, you know, flushed, I want to be able to tell, or at least to kind of tell the condition of the liquid, you know, see if it is completely flushed out at this point. So closing my bleeder and leave a pressure on here. Open this bad boy up. I'm just going to leave it connected this time. That way we have less fluid come out. Put this on here. That should keep us from having a mess. But this is currently what it looks like now. As you can see, still a little dirty, but it's getting clearer than what it was. So. Alright, make sure seal is still good. Looks like it's in place still. Put it back on. And that appears to be the best method, keeping you from wasting brake fluid on your vehicle. Alright, so we're clear. Alright. Let's open it up again. Alright, so I'm going to give it a pressure the seconding more out right now. This is closed. I guess I'm measuring it by every time this block comes to the front. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. But I might have to start right back at 1 again to see if I can get any pressure going. Alright, let's see what I can. I guess you got 4 of them. Should be good. 4 from completely closed. Or at least not like tight, but you know, from when you get to close. Yeah, it sucks. Oh yeah, that's good pressure right there. I think this will probably be my last go through on this one. It's not totally clear, but you know, it's decent. It's relatively clear. Well, it's clearer than what it was. So I think I'm going to call it done. But I'm going to go ahead and pump the clutch a few times, and hopefully we'll have and maintain good pressure on this bad boy. Now what I'm hoping is, because we kind of had pressure on this thing, that hopefully it didn't, you know, it kind of drew fluid out of the system without actually messing up the integrity of the system. So I think it's going to be air in this line regardless of what I do. And so, and I think I remember I was going on a trip, and while I was on the trip, this bad boy actually had to put fluid in it. So I think it's leaking anyway, probably at the other side of it as it gets pressurized, or you know, as I'm using it. I think some of the hydraulic fluid is leaking out anyway. And so regardless of this situation and what I do, I believe I'm probably going to end up having to replace this bleeder, or not necessarily replace it, although I think that might be the best thing to do. Because like I said, I don't know if the hose is bad, if it's just the connection of the bleeder on, you know, at this point at the slave cylinder and here, or if it's a combination of all three. So to eliminate that issue, really it's just better to get rid of the whole thing and get one that you know it will hold, you know, air for sure. And it's probably not a bad idea to kind of pressure test it yourself before you install it. And that way, if you pressure test it before you install it, you know for a fact there's no leaks on it. So I would definitely do that. So at this point, we should be tied off. Pressure is released. We'll go ahead and dispose of this fluid, which, as you can see, looks pretty good. Looks, it's not too dirty. It's relatively clear. So I think we can call it good at this point. Can't see all the way through it, but it's not like it was. So I'm gonna call it good for now, and I'll probably just end up having to add fluid as needed. But I'm gonna pour this out, disconnect, and then I'm going to pump it around about at least 30 times, and then we'll see what happens after that. And the reason why I'm doing it 30 times or more is basically to try to make sure there's no air in the system. And I think I'm going to try to look at the tape while I'm making it, editing, and see if I see any air bubbles come out during that process. And that'll let me know if I have any additional issues, I guess you could say. All right. Cool. Let's the pumping begin. And just to make it more fun, I want to zoom in. Oh, that looks about good 120 something pounds maybe. So I'm gonna cap this off and I'll take it for a test drive, and I'll let you know if I had any issues. Yep. Hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you'll see me again. But I didn't feel any loss of pressure or sponginess while I was pumping it. So hopefully my sort of in the between tests, or excuse me, version of doing this thing worked well. And so hope you guys take care. Hey, also, if you liked it, give me a like. If you got any further advice, you can offer me or anybody in the community, please put in the comments so we can all learn. All right, take care.